This week's movements with Faheema Adia, equity analyst at Momentum Securities. Faheema, thank you for your time. If we look at the past week, a few central banks made interest rate announcements. There is hope that at least in the US, the peak of the cycle has been reached. What do you think? And as this also has an impact on us here in South Africa.
Evening, Melissa. Thanks for having me. Yes, so we had some key data coming out this week from the US in particular that showed GDP expanded at 2.4% in Q2, well above consensus expectations. We also had the jobless claims numbers coming in that were a lot lower than what was expected, showing continued strength and resilience in the US economy. So due to all of this, the dollar was stronger this morning and led to some weakness in the rand. We had the US Fed and European central banks also hike rates by 25 basis points this week. In terms of whether we've reached the peak, I think given the stronger than expected data released this week, it seems we have probably not yet reached the peak. Inflation still remains above 2% target in the US, so it's likely we will probably see further rate hikes until they're able to get inflation under control and we see data showing signs that the economy is cooling.
We just heard from the Automobile Association that fuel prices could increase substantially next week, and this is due to the oil price. Just explain to us why this oil price is just suddenly booming up.
Yes, it's been driven by macroeconomic factors. So if we look at the US economy, it's been a lot more resilient than everyone had expected. And then there's also been speculation now about China's stimulus measures, which will likely boost that economy further. And also further cuts by OPEC has put pressure on that oil price. So I think it's been a combination of those factors that have put some upward pressure on that price of oil.
Some good news, the rand really showed its strength this week. Do you think we can expect further improvement in the next week?
So I think now with all the central bank rate hikes that have come through from overseas this week, so we had the US hike rates and the ECB hike rates, we will probably have to see further rate hikes coming from the South African Reserve Bank to enable us to maintain the strength of our own currency. And of course, it depends on what happens with inflation in the next half of the year. But yeah, hopefully that we can maintain that strength. But the Reserve Bank will have to obviously act in line with some of the other central banks across the world to maintain that.
To some company news, Tongard received more money to continue the business rescue process. What does this mean for the process?
Yeah, so basically what's happened with Tongard is that they have found a strategic partner in Kagera Sugar that owns sugar assets in Tanzania and DRC to help bail it out. A lot is, however, still up in the air regarding the deal. They still need approval from government, and a lot of crucial meetings still need to take place over the next week. If that does go well, then creditors will have to have the final vote on approving of the deal. The government obviously does have a vested interest in the deal working, given that Tongard has about 500,000 employees at the moment that they would like to see continue hold those jobs.
If we then look to the other big story of the week, and that is the dissolvement of Steinhoff, it's almost like an end to an era. What do you think the corporate landscape learned from this scandal?
Yeah, it really does feel like the end of an era. This has been going on for such a long time. And I suppose the dissolving and delisting of the company is just pretty much the final formality now. After that restructuring earlier this year resulted in debt holders taking majority control of the assets. I think what investors can learn is just to be a bit maybe more cautious when investing, just to be more alert of red flags on financial statements that could signal potential fraud. And I suppose to be more cautious going forward and not to take it for granted that just because a company is a huge multi-billion rand company, it means that there are no underlying risks to what's happening in the financials.
And then just lastly, Faheema, the biggest losers and winners this week on the local market.
So I think the biggest winner, of course, is Liberty 2 Degrees after Liberty made that buyout offer of the company. So they made the offer at a premium of about 46% of the market price. So the share price was up about 42% on the back of that. Some of the other winners this week have been clothing retailers. We've had the likes of Truworths, TFG, Mr. Price see their share price go a lot higher. So it comes after positive outlooks for retailers, given that inflation seems to be coming off in SA, and we're hoping that interest rates have peaked. In terms of, I would say, losers of the week, ArcelorMittal is one that is facing quite a few headwinds.
Thank you so much for your time, Faheema. That was Faheema Adia, equity analyst at Momentum Securities.